Alcatraz has always been more than just concrete and icy waters. It's a puzzle, wrapped in barbed wire, shrouded in fog, and steeped in legend. For years, people have gazed at that jagged island in San Francisco Bay, haunted by one question: did they actually escape? Now, in 2025, a new detail has come to light, so precise and deliberate that it's challenging long-held beliefs. But don't expect a clean conclusion. This story isn't about clear-cut heroes or villains. It's about shadows, science, and a silent night still echoing with unanswered questions. What truly happened behind those prison walls? And how close are we, finally, to knowing the truth? Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary, known as The Rock, was the embodiment of America's harshest approach to incarceration. Located on a small island just over a mile from San Francisco, it began as a military fort in the 1850s before becoming a federal prison in 1934. Operated by the Federal Bureau of Prisons, Alcatraz was built to contain inmates considered too violent or unruly for other institutions. From day one, it was meant to be the final stop, a maximum security prison with minimum privileges, meant for the most unmanageable criminals. The facility was a marvel of design and security. Built between 1910 and 1912, the main cell house included 4 blocks of cells, a dining area, hospital, library, and administrative offices. The cells were small and stark, reinforced with steel bars resistant to tampering. Inmates were counted up to 13 times a day, and the prison maintained the lowest guard-to-prisoner ratio in the country. Armed guards, metal detectors, tear gas stations, and elevated gun galleries ensured security was airtight. Even small privileges like working, receiving visitors, or talking during meals had to be earned, making life on the inside both rigid and mentally exhausting. With a capacity of around 312, Alcatraz was never full. It held some of America's most infamous criminals, including Al Capone and Machine Gun Kelly. The most dangerous prisoners were kept in D Block, home to the whole, isolation cells known for their brutal conditions. Rehabilitation wasn't part of the plan, and control and segregation, including racial separation, were the priorities. Over its 29-year run, the prison underwent major updates, including electrified fencing, better locking systems, and tighter security protocols in the 1930s and 40s. Alcatraz shut down on March 21, 1963, largely due to the steep cost of upkeep and damage from saltwater erosion. Still, its legacy endures. Now a museum managed by the National Park Service, the site draws over 1 million visitors annually. Restored areas offer a glimpse into what was once considered the toughest prison in the U.S., a place where punishment and survival often blurred together. Its walls may have been strong, but its legend was stronger, until one night changed it all. The idea of Alcatraz being escape-proof became a defining part of its identity. More than a prison, it stood as a symbol of ultimate confinement. Set on a wind-whipped island, Alcatraz represented the final word in American punishment. It wasn't just a place to do time, it was where the system placed those it had given up on. Its architecture, remote location, and strict routines helped forge the myth that escape wasn't just unlikely, it was impossible. That myth wasn't built on stories alone. Over nearly 3 decades, the numbers seemed to prove it. In the 14 documented escape attempts from Alcatraz, most inmates were either caught or killed, while a few disappeared into the bay, believed to have drowned. The bay's powerful tides, freezing temperatures, and distance from the shore made escape nearly impossible. Attempting to flee was, by most accounts, a death sentence. This perception of total containment was critical to Alcatraz's identity. The prison wasn't just designed to hold people, it was meant to erase any hope of escape. The myth that Alcatraz was inescapable was embraced by guards, officials, and the public alike, reinforcing the prison's fearsome reputation. That belief was shaken in June 1962. On the night of June 11, sometime between 10:30 and 11 p.m., 3 inmates, Frank Morris, John Anglin, and Clarence Anglin, escaped their cells and vanished. Their escape triggered a moment of reckoning. The idea that Alcatraz could be outsmarted, even once, shattered its untouchable image. The psychological impact was immediate. Where there had once been certainty and control, only questions and mystery remained. Unlike past escape attempts, this one left no clear conclusion. The uncertainty gave rise to doubt, curiosity, and eventually, a legend bigger than the prison itself. Even now, the 1962 escape stands not just as an incident, but as a pivotal moment in Alcatraz's story. Whether the men lived or died is still unknown, but what is certain is that their disappearance fractured a national myth. That fracture allowed the legend of the Rock to begin to fade. Frank Lee Morris was no ordinary prisoner. He was an experienced criminal with a sharp intellect and a reputation for escaping custody, exactly the kind of person Alcatraz was built to confine. Orphaned at 11 and in trouble with the law by 13, Morris grew up in foster homes and institutions. His difficult upbringing toughened him and honed his survival instincts. With convictions ranging from armed robbery to drug possession, and multiple escape attempts, he was sent to Alcatraz in January 1960 after breaking out of the Louisiana State Penitentiary. From the moment he arrived, Morris began plotting his next escape. At Alcatraz, Morris was housed near John and Clarence Anglin, as well as Alan West, men he had previously known from other prisons. Their adjacent cells allowed them to communicate quietly at night, gradually forming one of the most carefully planned escape teams in history. Morris took the lead, drawing on his intelligence and past experience to design a strategy that would challenge Alcatraz's reputation like no other attempt before it. Unlike those who had failed, Morris aimed for perfection. The team spent months chiseling away at the concrete beneath the air vents in their cells, weakened by salt damage. They used smuggled metal spoons, discarded saw blades, and even created a makeshift drill using a vacuum cleaner motor. Morris made fake vent covers from papier-mâché, painting them with materials stolen from the library and maintenance shop to disguise the damage. To hide the sounds of their work, Morris played his accordion during scheduled music time, masking the noise of their digging. Nothing was left to chance. The entire plan reflected careful coordination and Morris's tactical brilliance. Their escape wasn't just a breakout, it was a direct challenge to the authority and mythology of Alcatraz itself. Morris and the Anglin brothers added a bold new chapter to the legend of Alcatraz's supposed inescapability. They stitched together over 50 raincoats to create a 6x14-foot raft and life jackets, sealing the rubber with hot steam pipes. Ingeniously, they even repurposed a concertina into an air pump. Though they were officially presumed drowned, no bodies were ever found, and a 2013 letter presented compelling clues that they may have survived. Whether Morris perished in the bay or lived out his days in secret, his breakout remains the most brilliant escape in Alcatraz's history, proving that even the Rock could be breached. John and Clarence Anglin were more than just convicts, they were brothers driven by loyalty, hardship, and an unyielding desire for freedom. Raised in a large, impoverished family of 13 siblings on a Florida farm, they developed a deep bond while learning to endure and survive. This closeness became the backbone of their legendary escape. Their criminal past, mostly involving bank robberies, landed them in Atlanta Penitentiary. After several failed escape attempts, authorities transferred them to Alcatraz, considered the final stop for incorrigible prisoners. At Alcatraz, the brothers reunited with Frank Morris, a fellow inmate they'd previously known. Their cells were located next to Morris and Alan West, allowing them to discreetly plan their escape. With Morris leading the operation intellectually, the Anglins played a vital role in execution. They spent months digging through weakened concrete with metal spoons and saw blades. While Morris handled engineering tasks, the Anglins managed logistics and camouflage, crafting papier-mâché vent covers and collecting materials during prison work shifts. Their efforts also extended to helping build the massive raft and life jackets from raincoats. They used the prison's hot steam pipes to seal the rubber and transformed a concertina into an air pump. Understanding the prison's routine and available resources through the factory system was also key to their plan. Every step they took was deliberate, and their escape route was hidden beneath an elaborate deception. One of their most ingenious tricks was the creation of lifelike dummy heads, molded from soap, toilet paper, and real hair gathered from the barbershop. These heads helped fool guards during checks. What followed their disappearance became one of the most puzzling cases in American crime history. New evidence suggested they may have survived long after being declared legally dead in 1979. A 2013 letter claimed they were still alive. Authorities also intercepted Christmas cards allegedly sent by them and discovered a photo from 1975 that appeared to show them in Brazil. In a BBC interview, guards and family members described the escape as eerie and silent. No alarms were triggered, and no one heard a sound. If the Anglins did survive, they not only escaped physically but also managed to disappear from history itself. The brilliance of the 1962 escape wasn't limited to digging or building a raft, it lay in their ability to deceive. A key part of their success was the creation of eerily realistic dummy heads. These decoys, which duped guards during bed checks, were made from a mix of soap, toothpaste, and toilet paper. Painted with stolen art supplies and finished with real human hair, they mimicked sleeping inmates so well that the guards didn't notice anything amiss. Rather than waking prisoners, guards simply looked for movement. The illusion was so convincing that it gave Morris and the Anglins the precious time they needed to slip away into the night. The dummies, carefully arranged on the pillows and partially concealed beneath blankets, created a convincing illusion of sleeping men. To make the deception more believable, the escapees stuffed clothes and towels under the sheets to imitate the shapes of real bodies. The disguise worked so well that the guards didn't realize anything was amiss until the morning roll call on June 12. By then, the three men had already vanished hours earlier. The trickery extended far beyond the fake heads. The inmates carved out hidden spaces in the walls, covering the tunnel entrances with cardboard and papier-mâché, fashioned from torn pages of prison library magazines. These coverings were crafted to resemble the metal air vent grills at the back of their cells and blended seamlessly into the wall. Behind them lay gaping escape routes. When guards glanced inside the cells, all they saw were what appeared to be sealed vents, completely unaware that they concealed tunnels to freedom. What made the illusion even more fascinating was its link to a broader legacy of psychological tactics behind prison walls, the art of deception honed by men with nothing to lose. Throughout history, clever tricks have aided prison breaks, from letters smuggled in hollow books to makeshift uniforms sewn from laundry. But few escape plans matched the Alcatraz scheme in detail and theatrical flair. FBI agent Michael Dyke, who worked on the case, once said, "They didn't just dig out, they rehearsed a performance," pointing to the psychological manipulation as much as the physical effort. The inmates turned their cells into a stage, crafting a scene that fooled not just guards but the entire prison system. For a short time, they became ghostly performers, vanishing into legend. The deception was only the opening act, the real escape unfolded beneath the surface. The plan was literally carved into Alcatraz's aging structure. Frank Morris, John and Clarence Anglin, and Alan West discovered that the concrete behind the air vents below their sinks had been weakened by salt damage. Over many months, they chipped away at it using remarkably simple but inventive tools, stolen metal spoons and broken saw blades. They even built a drill from a vacuum cleaner motor. Night after night, they carefully tunneled their way into an unguarded maintenance corridor. This escape was made possible not by brute force but by meticulous, deliberate effort. The prisoners worked cautiously to avoid detection, covering the holes during the day with cardboard and papier-mâché vent covers painted with supplies from the prison library. These covers matched the walls so well they were virtually invisible. They also timed their digging with music hour, when prisoners could play instruments. Morris's accordion, noisy and wheezy, helped mask the sounds of digging and drilling, turning the cell block into a secret construction site. When the holes grew wide enough to squeeze through, the men crawled into the corridor and climbed to an empty upper level of the prison. There, they had created a hidden workshop where they stored supplies and prepared other parts of the escape, including the raft and paddles. The deteriorating state of the prison, built atop the remains of old military structures, made it easier for them to access this space. Some former inmates and later investigators would recall how those old, crumbling foundations played a role in the daring escape. The decaying structure of Alcatraz gave the escapees a critical advantage, allowing them to work unnoticed within the old, deteriorating maintenance tunnels. One of their final key tasks involved reaching the ventilation shaft at the top of the cell block. They climbed 30 feet using plumbing pipes and pried open the vent cover. To avoid drawing attention, they crafted a fake bolt from soap and sealed the grate shut, another example of their meticulous planning. By the time the escape was executed, they had created a detailed, concealed route from their cells to the rooftop. Their plan wasn't just about breaking out, it relied on exploiting the prison's age and structural flaws. In doing so, they accomplished what no one else had, a precise and undetected escape route from the rock. Once the tunnel and upper prison areas had been successfully navigated, Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers faced their most dangerous challenge yet, the freezing, powerful waters of San Francisco Bay. With temperatures between 50 and 55 degrees Fahrenheit and relentless currents, the bay had long upheld Alcatraz's reputation as inescapable. But the men weren't simply leaving a cell, they were fleeing a fortress. To achieve this, they engineered a raft and life vests using more than 50 stolen raincoats, showcasing the depth of their ingenuity and resolve. The raft, about 6 by 14 feet, was assembled in a secret workshop above the cell block. They stitched the raincoats using thread from the prison's work areas and sealed the seams with melted rubber from the plumbing steam pipes. For inflation, they modified a concertina, similar to a small accordion, into a makeshift air pump. Even the paddles were homemade, crafted from plywood likely gathered during work shifts. Every component needed for the escape had been hidden in plain sight. After months of careful preparation, the trio reached the northeastern shore of the island on the night of June 11, 1962. There, they inflated their raft and quietly launched into the cold darkness, aiming for Angel Island, less than 2 miles away. The escape remained unnoticed until morning, but clues gradually surfaced. On June 14, the Coast Guard discovered a paddle. That same day, a sealed package containing personal belongings of the Anglin brothers was found. A week later, remnants of the raft were recovered near the Golden Gate Bridge, followed by one of their homemade life vests. Despite the discovery of these items, no trace of the men was ever found. Many officials, including the prison warden, believed the escapees had drowned. "You hear the wind, don't you? And do you see the water?" Warden Richard Willett asked in a BBC interview. "Do you think you could make it?" Yet some, like Chambers, believed the level of planning and the quality of the raft suggested the men could have survived. Later scientific studies supported the idea that if the escape was timed within a narrow tidal window, it could have been successful. Whether they perished or reached freedom, the raincoat raft endures as the most remarkable act of defiance against America's most secure prison. Alan West was initially one of the 4 inmates involved in the escape plan, but he never made it out. He had been a longtime inmate at Alcatraz since 1957. West had previously known Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers from their time in different prisons, and their shared experiences in neighboring cells allowed them to collaborate on the escape plan. West played a role in every part of the plan, chiseling through the weakened wall behind his sink, gathering materials for the raft and dummy heads, and helping construct the escape route. However, on the critical night of June 11, 1962, West failed to break through the final layer of concrete in time. In his own words, West's tunnel turned out to be too narrow. He either misjudged the size or was unable to fully remove the last section of cement. As he struggled to widen the opening in panic, the others couldn't afford to wait. With dawn approaching and time running out, Morris and the Anglin brothers proceeded without him. West stayed in his cell, fully aware that his unique chance for escape was slipping away. His fate was sealed not by fear, but by the smallest physical obstacle, the final few inches of stubborn concrete that refused to give. The following morning, the guards discovered an escape had taken place. West quickly cooperated with law enforcement, offering a detailed account of the escape plan. He outlined the route through the utility corridor, across the rooftop, and toward their intended destination, Angel Island. His testimony became the foundation for the ensuing manhunt. According to the BBC, West pointed out key evidence such as a paddle and belongings of the Anglins. However, none of the escapees were ever located, leading to suspicions that they had anticipated West's involvement and altered their escape route to avoid capture if he talked. Alan West was left with the burden of a plan almost realized. While he avoided the peril of freezing to death in the cold waters, he lost his chance at freedom. After the failed escape attempt, West was processed when Alcatraz closed in 1963 and completed his sentence. Though often overshadowed by those who seemingly vanished, his role in the escape was crucial, as he provided the most comprehensive insider account of the events. In the mythic history of Alcatraz, West remains a witness to an escape that might have succeeded. In 2013, more than 50 years after the infamous escape, a new development sparked renewed interest in the Alcatraz mystery. A letter, allegedly written by John Anglin, was sent to the San Francisco Police Department. The letter claimed, "I escaped from Alcatraz in June 1962. Yes, we all made it that night, but barely." It stated that Frank Morris had passed away in 2005, Clarence Anglin in 2008, and that John himself was terminally ill, willing to negotiate his surrender in exchange for medical treatment. This letter reignited speculation and led law enforcement to take another look at a case that had been closed for decades. The FBI quietly reopened the investigation, subjecting the letter to forensic analysis, including handwriting, fingerprint, and DNA testing to determine its authenticity. However, the results were inconclusive. The handwriting didn't match samples from the Anglins or Morris, and no usable DNA or fingerprints were found. This left the case lingering in uncertainty, with the letter being credible enough to suggest it might be genuine but lacking the definitive proof required for confirmation. The letter remained largely unknown until 2018, when local CBS affiliate KPIX broke the story. The timing and content of the letter, combined with years of alleged sightings and family claims, deepened the mystery surrounding the escape. The introduction provided new life to a mystery that continues to intrigue. Even before the letter surfaced, the Anglin family had claimed to receive Christmas cards from the brothers, and there was much debate over a 1975 photograph that allegedly showed John and Clarence in Brazil. The letter's contents, with its eerie mention of survival, traveling across states, and living a quiet life in hiding, may be the most convincing evidence yet that the escape was successful. The U.S. Marshals Service, which still technically holds the case, has kept all possibilities open. In 2022, they released age-progressed images showing how Morris and the Anglin brothers might appear today, alongside public appeals for any new leads. Some investigators and officials remain convinced the men perished in the bay, but others argue there are too many unresolved questions for the case to be considered closed. Whether the 2013 letter is a genuine confession or an elaborate hoax, it adds to the lore of the Alcatraz mystery and might have brought us closer to the truth than any previous letter. What's particularly striking about the 2013 letter is how it fits into a broader cultural fascination with disappeared criminals and unsolved myths. In today's world of constant surveillance, nearly complete digital footprints, and limited public interest, the idea that three men might vanish after committing a crime, slipping into the shadows for decades, seems almost mythical. This evokes romanticized legends of figures like D.B. Cooper and Billy the Kid, criminals who became icons in popular culture. As Michael Dyke, a former U.S. Marshal, noted in a 2016 interview, "When the underdog could beat the system, people love a good mystery." This fascination arises not only from the theory that these men may have survived, but also from the idea of small flaws in an otherwise rigid institution, where a slip of freedom remains possible. Just when the case seemed to go cold, science provided new insights that myths had never offered. For decades, the prevailing belief among prison officials and federal investigators was that Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers didn't survive their escape from Alcatraz. The cold, swift currents of San Francisco Bay were seen as an insurmountable barrier. Warden Richard Willard reinforced this view in a 1964 BBC interview, asking, "Do you think you could make it?" He, like many others at the time, believed that even if the men had managed to leave the island, the water would have claimed their lives. This belief led the FBI to close the case in 1979, declaring the escapees legally dead. However, in the years that followed, that assumption began to be challenged by scientific evidence. In 2014, a team of Dutch researchers used advanced computer modeling to reconstruct the tidal conditions on the night of June 11, 1962. Their findings suggested that if the escapees launched their raft between 11 p.m. and midnight, roughly when they were believed to have departed, the currents could have carried them toward Angel Island. This simulation contradicted the long-held belief that the waters were impassable and introduced a plausible survival scenario, provided the men had timed their escape accurately. This scientific breakthrough reignited interest in the case and shed new light on decades of rumors and alleged sightings. In the wake of the Dutch study, the 2013 letter claiming the men had survived and lived in seclusion gained renewed credibility. Together with newly discovered evidence, including a recovered paddle, personal items, and fragments of the raft, it became increasingly plausible that the men could have reached land alive. The escape, once thought physically impossible, might have succeeded if the men executed their plan with the same level of precision they demonstrated throughout. As both evidence and scientific analysis continue to build, the mystery grows ever more compelling. Despite the efforts of the U.S. Marshals, they have concluded that convicts like Morris and the Anglins would likely have faded into peaceful, law-abiding lives. Still, the case remains open. In fact, as recently as 2022, updated age-progressed images of the three were released, suggesting that law enforcement has not entirely given up on locating the fugitives. Science may have uncovered the truth, or at least something very close to it. The escape from Alcatraz continues to be one of the most intriguing unsolved mysteries in America, a story where fact and possibility continue to battle for dominance. Beyond tide charts and forensic reconstructions, the mystery of the Alcatraz escape taps into something deeper in American culture and national fascination with outsmarting the system. From books to Hollywood movies like Escape from Alcatraz, 1979, the story has been transformed from a simple prison break into a legendary tale of human cleverness triumphing over institutional power. Do you think they survived? Or did the Bay claim them forever? Share your theory in the comments below. If you enjoyed the mystery, give this video a like, subscribe for more deep dives into true crime and history, and be sure to hit the bell so you never miss an update. Now, check out the next video on your screen. You won't believe what was uncovered there.